Hi, Rick here today with a Star Trek Picard follow-up. It finished a while ago and left us with some questions, and yes, some seeming oversights from the story. Overall, I did enjoy the show, seeing the Federation, Picard and the crew pull themselves together out of a darker mood despite its slow moments and wavering. But, undeniably, there are some things that need to be addressed or expanded upon, lest they just fall by the wayside. I'm not entirely saying that every point here needs to be addressed, but these are 7 unanswered questions that still linger for me. So, starting with number 1, what on earth was that piece of shrapnel in RIOS' shoulder when we first met him? It was never explained, and in the comments someone mentioned how weird it was and how if it wasn't addressed it would be pretty dumb. Now here we are, post-series, and it wasn't answered. I'm guessing it serves to introduce the concept that Captain RIOS here operates outside the law on occasion and is no stranger to violent or dangerous missions. Being as that he is a freelance courier and smuggler, it makes sense that he'd encounter all sorts of shady types outside of the Federation, but what caused this wound? It was relatively fresh, still being tended to by the EMH, meaning he either obtained it and set a course for Earth to rendezvous with RAFFI's job, which was Picard, or he got it from around the Sol system, the heart of the Federation. Originally, I thought it was shrapnel from an exploded console or something, but I couldn't see any damage from around the La Sirena, so maybe it's from a scuffle. Does he owe people money? Probably, but I doubt they'd attack him for it unless his time had run out. Maybe it was a dispute with a client. Dunno, and in hindsight it was never addressed and I doubt it ever will be. Point 2. What the smeg happened to NAREK? According to Michael Chabon, NAREK was captured by the Federation after the standoff over Coppelius, but this was cut from the final show, so if it didn't appear on screen, not total canon yet. This is a relatively easy fix, especially if NAREK is to be in the next season. We just have to see him in Starfleet custody. But I don't see a reason for him to come back, unless we're getting involved with Tal Shiar stuff all over again. Basically, for one of the series' main antagonists, he just sort of gets forgotten about by the end. Part C. It was a triumphant moment when Starfleet forces arrived over Coppelius, but within seconds, everyone noticed that it was the same ship with some different nacelles. The real reason was because it's a quick way to make a large armada. Now, I'd rather this than see a bunch of Discovery-era ships flying around, but I'd also rather have seen more variety in the ships we did get. Now, I don't have a problem with this new Inquiry-class starship, but none of them even had registries, and apparently they're supposed to be the most advanced ships as of 2399. Now, there is an easy solution to this that sort of makes some lore sense, but it is again completely headcanon. Until we get more information, I'm going to assume that these are literally so new that they've not been officially pressed into service yet, hence the lack of finalisation in their designs. With the removal of Utopia Planitia, the Federation's prime shipyards, it could be that they're making up for lost time and just commissioning a whole bunch of starships to replace those that have been missed in the 14-year downtime. After receiving the distress call, they mobilised this semi-active wing of ships and set off as a show of force. That's the sort of in-universe justification that makes sense to me, and while I acknowledge that the Zheng-He looking like all the other vessels is boring, the damage is done. At least you could tie it into the lore to smooth it over a bit. Part Delta. This one is more of a personal gripe, but I want some expanded lore on the current status of the Romulan Star Empire, or lack thereof if that's the case. We know for certain that there is now a power called the Romulan Free State, which maintained control of the Borg artifact. However, the Tal Shiar got heavily involved, and it wasn't made completely clear on the relation between this new agency and the insidious Secret Service. The Free State seems willing to cooperate with other galactic powers, as seen by their sharing of the Borg cube, but the Tal Shiar always operated beyond the scope of the Romulan government. The Star Empire at least liked to pretend it had sway over the organisation. Maybe with the fall of Romulus, the Tal Shiar has finally stopped pretending to answer to anyone and is really in control? Or maybe they're now rogue. Either way, the Tal Shiar is doing fine, but the rise of movements like the Romulan rebirth shows us that nothing is stable within the remnants of the Empire, and honestly, I just love me some Romulans. I want to know more about the political galactic makeup in general, but as this series focused on the Romulans, I'll try to content myself with what's there for now. The quintuple gripe now. Will JURATI face trial? She did, after all, murderize Bruce Maddox and is sort of dealing with the repercussions. I was glad that it wasn't just brushed off by the crew, and she feels genuine regret for doing this now that the whole prophecy thing was cleared up. The fact she feels remorse keeps her redeemable for me, but she still needs to face some form of penance. Now, yes, it was alluded to that perhaps the vision itself could be causing a lot of mental distress, and JURATI was not in her right mind, but if that's the case, it still needs to be addressed. Ideally, the Federation would get involved, but I guess I could settle for the La Sirena crew working out some form of their own justice, like now she has to work off her debt by helping others or something. As long as it's not all just forgotten about, I'm good. And again, this is a rather easy one to fix. Just tie it into her character development moving on. 6. What is going on with Seven and RAFFI? I'm all for the idea that 7 of 9 might be evolving her sexuality. After all, her entire story arc in Voyager was about her discovering herself, and it was an idea that was thrown around even back then. But honestly, I didn't see any chemistry between her and RAFFI. In fact, I don't even remember them talking. It was a small thing at the end of the series as the camera panned across the crew, we saw them hold hands in a rather flirty way. Something that I actually missed the first time around. But is it going anywhere? Certainly, both RAFFI and Seven could use someone to confide in, someone who can overlook the coach-sized amount of baggage they each have. Or is this just a fling in the moment? Either way, if the writers want me to buy into this, it's going to have to go somewhere. Otherwise, it's just a random last-minute idea thrown in at the end. Currently, that's what it feels like. So, more story here, please. On top of this, nothing gave any hints that RAFFI Musica would develop an interest with Seven, considering her history in the books and her current estranged status with her family. I don't know. It felt very out of place, and unless they're going somewhere with it, there was no point. Speaking of relationships, that's the last point I have. When did Dr. Soong get jiggy with it? It was nice to see Spiner back playing a Soong again, the reoccurring Easter egg, but that was then overshadowed by the actual return of Lieutenant Commander Data in immaterial form. I tried to take a look at Noonien Soong's timeline to see where the birth of a natural son could fit into the lifespan of Data's inventor, and could really only find one spot. Alton Inigo Soong seemed to know of his father, stating that he constantly reminded him that the artificial sons were the sort of preferred children, so it's played as if Noonien was aware of Alton's existence. That, added to the fact that this new Soong seems to have followed in his father's footsteps, means that the two were at least aware of one another. This makes Noonien's creation of Data Lore a little stranger, as it was revealed that a contributing factor was that he and his wife, Juliana, could not have children. Now admittedly, Juliana was an android too, so her memories are questionable, but considering the lengths Soong went to save her by performing a copy, it seems unlikely that he would modify her memories to erase a child and implant false ones. This led me to conclude that Alton was from a pre-Juliana affair, before Noonien was even laughed out of the scientific community and went into his self-imposed exile. The age would match up nicely, making Alton 71-ish at the time of Picard, around the same age as Brent Spiner. So, like I say, there's room for him to fit in. However, it still does not explain his absence in Soong's life, and the complete lack of interest Starfleet cyberneticists showed in tracking down the equally talented AI expert that Alton is. I can only assume that both Soongs kept a low profile so as not to let Noonien's fame and infamy contaminate his biological son's life. But that's all speculation, as mentioned. To be honest, I'm just searching for some clarity around the sudden surprise Soong suddenly showing up. I really don't need to know the intimate details. So yeah, 7 things that Star Trek Picard still leaves unaddressed. Some are literally minor gripes, but some are issues that could shape entire future story arcs and characters. As I said, on the whole, I enjoyed Picard's adventure and would like to see where they are taking the character next, as we actually advance the Star Trek timeline for the first time in far too long. But would like to see more of Starfleet and the Federation overall, but I'm not sure Picard is the right platform to delve into this, as I think his Starfleet days are probably behind him now. Can you think of any other plot elements or questions that you'd want answered from a Series 2 of this show? Probably, actually. Anyway, with the announcement of Strange New Worlds promising a more traditional Trek style, I'm happy to let Star Trek Picard explore the galaxy in other ways. Thanks for watching this video, and I look forward to further discussion in the comments, so I'll see you there. Until next vid, thanks again, and goodbye.